Ah, the forbidden fruit of Cuban cigars. I'm smoking a Cohiba Siglio 3, which happens to be the last Cuban cigar in my stash. It was a box that I bought like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. So it gives me a good opportunity, though, to talk about what you need to know about the current state of Cuban cigars in the US. But to understand the current situation, we really need to look at the history. Everything was hunky-dory up until about 1959. Cuban cigars were selling like gangbusters everywhere in the world, including the US. And very few countries actually had cigar producing capabilities. But then Castro came 1959 and shook everything up and nationalized the cigar industry in Cuba. And of course, relations with the US went downhill from there. And by 1962, tensions were really bad. And John F. Kennedy actually instituted an embargo against all Cuban goods, including cigars. Interestingly enough, though, the day before he instituted that embargo, he secured 1,000 of his favorite H. Upmann cigars.
I need a couple of primo cigars ASAP. I'm not a stickler for how they got in the country.
From Cuba. So the way of the world. Anyway, there was a long period, 50 plus years, where there was an embargo. But in 2014, and then it expanded in 2016, the Obama administration actually opened up relations a little bit with Cuba and allowed limited purchase of alcohol and cigars for personal use only. In 2017, we returned to a pretty full embargo when the Trump administration reversed that and pretty much reinstituted the embargo that was there before. So let's talk about the current situation and legality, because there's a lot of misconceptions about it. For example, mail order. A lot of people assume, well, I can buy Cuban cigars by mail order because they don't come directly from Cuba. They might come from Hong Kong or Belgium or somewhere like that where they're shipping from. That is illegal. You cannot do that. Mail order has always been illegal of Cuban cigars. Another thing is, let's say you take a trip to Mexico or the Caribbean and you buy a few cigars in a cigar shop there, a few Cuban cigars, and you want to bring them back. You'll probably get away with it, but if they do catch you, it's trouble. So you can't buy them in another country. Your friend from Canada can't bring them in. You can't buy them in a foreign country and bring them in. That is illegal. You face a confiscation for sure if they catch you doing it, and up to a $50,000 fine. And there's actually statutes that include prison time.
Don't worry, no one's going to prison, son.
Given the embargo and all the laws against bringing Cuban cigars into the country, there's got to be very few, if any, Cuban cigars smoked in the U.S., right? It's a black market. It's a gray market. Estimates say that up to 10 million, and some estimates say up to 50 million cigars from Cuba are smoked in the U.S. every year. Yes, and that's a lot. How true that is, we don't really know, but I've seen claims that the U.S. is actually right now the second biggest cigar market for Cuba behind China. So, interestingly enough, too, I was reading the latest issue of Cigar Aficionado, and they have a little bit of a feature that talks about famous people and celebrities and their favorite cigar. And in the latest issue I read, out of the 4 celebrities that they featured, who are all from the US, 3 of their favorite cigars were from Cuba. So somebody's smoking those Cuban cigars, right? Given all the hassle that we've been talking about in bringing Cuban cigars into the country legally, are Cubans really worth it? I'm just going to give you the pluses and minuses and let you decide. Let's look at the positives. Cubans are really the gold standard of cigars. There's an aura around Cuban cigars. A good Cuban cigar is a unique and special experience. And also a lot of the famous cigars of history, the Monte Cristo No. 2, the Hoyo, Epicure 2, Partega cigars, Cohibas, of course. Those are all Cuban cigars, and they certainly can be very, very good cigars. But let's look at some of the negatives. Certainly there's a cost, and one of the cost things has changed rapidly. Here we are in 2023. In 2020, China actually bought 50% of Habanos SA, which is basically the Cuban cigar industry. And when they did that, they ordered that Cuban cigars were now going to be sold all over the world, worldwide, based on the Hong Kong dollar. So they're going to sell for the same price in London or Mexico City or Montreal as they sell for in Hong Kong. What that did is that immediately raised the price of Cuban cigars to extraordinary heights. This one, as we talked about, this is a cigar that I bought in a box back in, I think, 2016 or so. And if I recall, they were about 16 or 17 bucks a piece. And this is what's called a Petite Corona. It's a pretty small cigar. And it's a Siglio. As Cohibas go, it's a run-of-the-mill cigar. If you were to buy the cigar today, it'd be at least 50 bucks, probably 60 or 70. So by case, a box of 20, I think it was either 20 or 24, man, you're talking about a lot of money at that. You're talking about $1,000 box of cigars that frankly are not any better than any of the other cigars I smoke. There's also the legalities that we talked about. We talked about the hassles and again, are you going to get caught? And if you get caught, what's going to happen? It's hard to say, but they are there. I mean, that's a reality. And also there's a quality issue. And certainly it's gotten better over the years. There was an adjustment period after Castro took over and so forth. Lastly is counterfeiting. I'm going to put up a picture that I saw on Facebook, a listing. I think it's listing 12 Cuban cigars. And these are classic Cuban cigars. There's no Cohibas in there, but there's Partegas and Epicure 2s and stuff like that. And this guy's selling them out of Atlanta for 140 bucks. And I would strongly suspect, since we just talked about the pricing on these, I would strongly suspect that those are not real good cigars. So I'm going to let you decide for yourself, but there are some drawbacks to Cuban cigars and a lot of hassle to get them. But again, if you want that forbidden fruit, you are welcome to it. The good news is, though, is we live in a cigar paradise here in the U.S. We can buy, for 8 or 10 bucks, you can buy a good cigar from Nicaragua or Dominican Republic and have a great smoke. We have low taxes. We have pretty low regulations on smoking versus other countries. And man, I'm happy to live in the U.S. And today I'm smoking a Cuban cigar, but tomorrow it's going to be one that is 100% legal here. So I'll see you next time.